All right, everyone, we have to start off today talking about Bernie Sanders and Obama getting into it because Obama, behind closed doors, in private, I guess, he said that he figures that Bernie Sanders can't win and that if it looks like he's going to credibly become possibly the nominee, he will step in to attempt to stop him. This has obviously pissed off Bernie Sanders fans. I can't imagine in what realm of reality is Obama crazy enough to actually disclose this plan to anyone who could possibly have spoken about it and leaked this fact to the press. Because they clearly like Bernie Sanders, at least to be in the race because he says, off-the-wall shit, and so he's newsworthy. And that's really what the press wants. The corporate press wants somebody who's exciting. There aren't many Democrats that really fill that, are there? Biden's not an exciting dude. It's funny when he becomes incoherent. It's funny to talk about the possibility of him dropping dead on a debate stage. But he's not charismatic. He's like a wet dish rag, really, when he talks. Warren, she's not really exciting either. And apparently he said stuff about her as well and said he felt it a personal slight that people would back her. I guess he doesn't get along with that side of the party, with the Warren sort of Clinton circle. But with Sanders, the Bernie Sanders fans take this to be the establishment Democrats are trying to stop revolution. That's not actually the case. Let me tell you how it really is. As a Vermonter who's had to suffer under Sanders-style policies, if you were to try to export him to a national stage, the Democrats would very quickly get kicked aside. I'm telling you right now, like before, the problem with Bernie Sanders isn't any individual platform he's concocted. It's the fact that he wants them all. If he gets into there, he'll become irate when he realizes that the mainline Democrats are not just going to bend over and give him socialism. It's just not going to happen. But he'll push for it anyway. The problem is that the cost that would run up would obstruct the government so much, because the Democrats would end up telling him no as well, that he'd be a failed lame duck one-term president who probably wouldn't accomplish anything. Add to that the fact that he's almost 80 years old, and of course he could end up being a one-termer simply because of his own mortality. Obama realizes this. Obama's a partisan Democrat. It doesn't the idea that he should be a Republican or that he's center-right or some stupid shit, he's a conservative. Barack Obama's not a conservative. What's happened is that a vocal minority within the Democratic Party has gone so far left they consider his style of platform to be conservative. But it's not. The idea of having an upper marginal tax rate of 44%, a 2.5% tax on people simply because they can't find or afford good health insurance. The idea of stacking the court with individuals that, largely don't like the Second Amendment, don't seem to have a particular care for the ability of the population to defend itself, and construe any bit of legislation possible as great as long as it limits public firearm ownership. The idea that Obama's interventionist-style economic policies, that is interventionist world policing foreign policy, that's a conservative platform is asinine. The idea that warmongering has ever been a conservative principle, that's an illusion in the post-Reagan era largely, when you've got world policing going on because of world trade. Well, you can say that it's pragmatically necessary, but it's not a traditionally conservative sort of idea. It's a liberal idea. It's an idea about being, you're far left. You want to intervene in everything. You don't trust individuals or private voluntary association. You look at it with a suspicious eye, and so you want to largely replace it with things that are more anally retentive. That's basically what it is. A lot of rules and regulations and taxes and bureaucrats and stuff. But the Bernie Sanders fans see Obama as a conservative because they're crazy. They've gone so far left. They think that you're electable. Here's the problem. And I keep trying to explain this to them, and they don't understand it. If you tell people, I want to give you free health care, they'll applaud. Even a lot of conservatives will say, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea, free health care. You tell them the cost, and most of them stop supporting it. If you then do this for both health care and education, student loan debt, and 5 or 6 other things, we're going to Equal Pay Act, and we're going to have welfare for illegals, and we're going to tear down the border wall, and we're going to do this and that, you get to the point where it becomes farcical because there is no possibility of you actually implementing even a small minority of these things because you wouldn't have the will of Congress, number one, and if you did, you'd be insolvent, number two. The United States trying to be like the rest of the developed world, there's a whole patchwork of the rest of the developed world in regards to firearm laws, in regards to tax policies, in regards to how effective those tax policies are. Trust me, there's a lot of people who skim a little bit off the top in high-tax socialist-style economies. There's a lot of underpinnings, especially in the energy sector or industrial sectors, of extreme capitalism that the United States is absent. A lot of these other countries, the Nordic model, something like that. Oh, this socialist country is doing so well. It's got free healthcare. Just having free healthcare doesn't make you a socialist country, especially if it's being paid for by the mass deregulation and subsidized status of your energy sector, which is what often seems to happen. It also helps to point out population density, the homogeneity of the population, how much it literally has to be spent on policing because of cultural stability and other things. What about the military budget? One thing that nobody wants to discuss is the fact that the U.S. is the only Western power with the naval and air capability to keep all of the trade and travel lanes open. Therefore, yes, we pay enormous amounts of money on our military and sometimes are forced to intervene overseas. This costs a very large amount of money, which means we have less money to put towards discretionary funding. If we were to stop doing this, and I hate to agree with the neocons almost on this subject, if we were not the ones guaranteeing the world's trade lanes, you would see increasingly China throwing its weight around, bullying us, trying to destroy us, smash us into submission. They would love to do this, and taking over the world trade system, taking over the world's shipping lanes, taking over the air lanes. This would happen because they're not so reluctant to lead as some people within the United States. They're hyper-nationalistic after a fashion. Oh, they would love it. The Chinese government, in fact, a lot of the Chinese people, they would applaud. Oh yeah, give us the wealth. The United States doesn't want to spend a little bit in order to make sure that world trade continues functioning largely for the benefit of the post-industrial Western nations? Oh yeah, we'll be happy to take that over. Absolutely. We got the manpower, we got the productivity, and China does. They just haven't bothered to invest in that massive navy that they need because right now there's no possibility of them eclipsing the U.S. because the U.S. keeps spending that money. That's why do you think all these people breathe down Trump's neck? Why do you think Trump is trying to get the rest of the NATO countries to pay their fair share? It's so that we can have a little bit of relaxation on our own budgetary needs with regards to the military so we can spend it on our own infrastructure. Trump is ironically doing what people like Bernie Sanders claim they want to do. They never will. Of course, he would never have a mandate. Barack Obama understands all of these things. For better or for worse, I was not a big supporter of Obama. I voted for him in 2008. Within a couple of years, it was clear he wasn't going to close Gitmo. He wasn't going to pull the troops back largely. He failed on world policing and stuff. He acted more like a Bush neocon, a world policer. He was in favor of censorship. He actually attacked the press, which is something Trump hasn't done. He didn't just make dirty memes about some journalist. Oh my God, that's an attack on the First Amendment. No. He had AP journos spied on. Nobody wants to talk about that either. But he's a master of strategy. He's a better strategist than anyone else currently active within the Democratic Party. He's better than the Clintons. He's better than any of the people currently running for office. And the Bernie Sanders fans are basically like a cult. When you look at the in-group preference of Bernie Sanders fans, everything else pales in comparison. The proportion of his fans, even though he's in third place, the proportion of his fans that strongly support him and would pretty much march over broken glass in a minefield to vote for him, the number of people who wouldn't vote for anybody else, except maybe a Tulsi Gabbard run or something at this point, is monstrous. And by the way, he's not even a lifelong Democrat. He had an I after his name for most of his political career. I don't even complain about that, but that's the truth. And I don't think he's going to be the nominee. If he's got Obama ready to take aim on him, Obama will take him down a peg. It would be very, very interesting indeed to see the Bernie Sanders nuts attempt to attack the legacy of Barack Obama. Trump will stand aside and be very, very amused and coast to re-election, by the way, if something like this happens. If the Bernie fans get a big dick about their candidate, who is unlikely to become the nominee, superdelegate, recension aside, Bernie Sanders wouldn't have won in 2016 anyway. I hate to burst your bubble, but he was consistently behind anyway because Hillary Clinton simply did better in more states. That's just the fucking way it is on through Super Tuesday and especially thereafter in March. The fact is this. Bernie Sanders couldn't even beat one person who was legendarily unpopular in an extremely thin field while being the maverick outsider grassroots candidate. He's no longer the maverick. He's no longer the only outsider. He's no longer the grassroots candidate. Technically speaking, Trump is. Technically speaking, Trump is the one that's the main grassroots candidate. Trump has the incumbent advantage, and Bernie Sanders is now almost 80 years old and has had a heart attack. The fact is that the far-left echo chambers of Twitter are not the country. Obama's tried to point this out. He got smacked in the face for doing so by far leftists who think that he is a conservative. It's funny to watch this. When Obama is considered a conservative by a group of people, they are far left. Extreme far left. They don't speak for the country. They have no capability of fielding a winning candidate. Donald Trump is the moderate. He's the grassroots candidate, and people are already used to him. All of the attacks that have been launched on him have washed off of him like rain, essentially, at this point. There's nowhere for him to go but up, especially campaigning against the impeachment process that's steadily losing steam. Obama's probably sitting there thinking, we're probably going to lose this one. Oh, I have faith in Joe, but I don't want to endorse him outright because then people will say, the Bernie Sanders fans will get a big dick about it, which they would. That's about all. Peace out.